So you've got that fire in your belly. You're a tech pro, you see a problem, and you want to build the solution. You're thinking about launching a startup. But there's always that little voice in the back of your head, isn't there? What happens if this whole thing fails? Are those years of my career just gone? Well, today we are tackling that exact fear. Is your startup experience a career-ending black hole, or is it secretly your greatest superpower? Let's get into it.
Look, this is the #1 fear. It's totally valid. You pour your heart, your soul, maybe your savings into an idea for years. And if it doesn't hit that billion-dollar valuation, you're terrified that big tech hiring managers will just glance at your resume, see that gap, and toss it in the bin. You don't want all that blood, sweat, and tears to count for nothing.
Now, here's where things get really interesting. You know that whole startup culture mantra, be all in, burn the boats, no plan B? Well, the source material for this explainer calls that out for what it is, immature thinking. Look, passion and commitment are absolutely essential, but that doesn't mean you can't be strategic about your own life and career.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Any well-run, stable company has a plan for winding things down if the market turns. It's just smart, responsible business. So why on earth wouldn't you apply that same strategic care to your own future? Planning for life after the startup isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of maturity.
Okay, so to figure out how to sell your startup experience, we first have to understand why it's so hard to translate. You're basically dealing with two completely different universes. They operate on opposite rules, and that's the core of the problem. So in one corner, you've got big tech. They have a product people already use, a validated market. Their #1 job is don't break anything. Keep user trust. That means everything is about scalability, reliability, perfection. They can throw money at the best infrastructure. And in the other corner, you've got your startup. You have, well, nothing yet. No market, no users. Your only goal is to find out if anyone cares, and you have to do it fast and cheap.
And that leads to the prime directive of every startup. You've heard it a million times: fail fast. The point isn't to build a fortress. The point is to build a raft, see if it floats, and learn something before you run out of money. This means every single technical decision you make is optimized for speed and low cost, not for perfection and scale.
And right there, that's the million-dollar question. How do you take this experience of building scrappy, maybe even hacky systems designed to test an idea, and make it sound like a massive asset to a company that worships stability and 5 nines of uptime? How do you possibly bridge that gap?
Well, the answer, the solution, isn't about bragging about the cheap database you used or the open source library you found. It's not about the tools at all. The key is to shift your perspective and learn to sell something much more valuable: the architect's mindset. It's a way of thinking that your startup journey has literally beaten into you.
And we can break this down into 3 really clear, actionable steps. First, you've got to think beyond the tools. Second, you have to consciously see the architectural trade-offs you're making every single day. And third, you have to get really good at marketing that mindset.
To get this first point, let me tell you a quick story from the source material. It's about this guy who is an absolute god at Microsoft Excel. Seriously, he was so good he went to tournaments and competed. But professionally, he was completely stuck, hit a career ceiling, and just could not break through it.
So what was the problem? It's actually incredibly simple, but really profound. He had mastered the how to make a pivot table do backflips, how to write a macro that could order you a pizza, but he never ever stepped back and asked the why.
See, this is the architect's move. An architect doesn't start with how do I do this in Excel? They zoom all the way out. They ask, wait a minute, what is the actual business problem we are trying to solve here? Is Excel even the right tool? Would Google Sheets be better because we need to collaborate? Do we need a real database instead? They always start from the problem, not the tool.
And here is the magic of your startup journey. As a founder, you are forced to think like an architect. You don't have the luxury of just using the company-approved software. You have to research 12 different payment processors to find the one with the lowest fees. You have to compare 5 different cloud providers to see which one has the best free tier. You don't just learn one tool, you learn the entire landscape and, crucially, the trade-offs between them all. So here is the practical advice. While you are deep in the startup trenches, making those low-cost and fast decisions, you need to do one extra thing. As you choose that simple, scrappy solution, take 5 minutes to consciously note what the big, expensive, scalable, and accurate alternative would have been. You're building a mental library of big tech solutions even while you're building a startup.
Okay, so you've been doing this. You've developed this incredible, powerful mindset. Now for the final piece of the puzzle. How in the world do you talk about this?
How do you reframe your experience on a resume or in an interview so that a big company gets it?
Check this out. The specialist competes on skills. Their pitch is, I'm an expert in AWS DynamoDB. That's a losing game for you. But the founder's pitch is totally different. Your pitch is, I'm an expert in finding the fastest, lowest cost way to solve a customer's problem. Do you see the difference? One is a technical skill that can be replaced. The other is a strategic mindset that is incredibly rare.
Let's be crystal clear about this. Your real value is not that you know some obscure programming language. Your value is that you are a professional problem seeker. Unlike an employee who gets handed a neat, well-defined ticket, you spent years out in the messy real world finding the problems worth solving and then figuring out how to solve them with duct tape and a shoestring budget.
So let's wrap this all up. Let's define your true, unique, and powerful market value after you've been through the startup gauntlet. What is the one thing you have that almost nobody else does?
A big company can go out and hire a specialist in anything. They can train their entire staff on the newest, shiniest technology. They can buy pretty much any skill they want. But there's one skill, one instinct, that is almost impossible for them to teach or to hire for. And that is your superpower. Through every failed feature, every awkward customer interview, every painful pivot, you have forged a razor-sharp, battle-tested instinct for what real people will actually pull out their wallets and pay for. It's a gut-level understanding of market reality that you can only get when you have real skin in the game. And that, my friends, is absolutely priceless.
So now, your startup experience isn't a black hole on your resume. It's your training ground. It's what makes you an architect. Hey, for more tech industry insights to help you level up your career or your business, head on over to aaronwhobuilds.com or just subscribe to this channel. And make sure to join the Inner Loop by getting on the email list. Let's go level up.